everybody, it's Kyla here. Welcome to Paranormal at the Boneyard. Oh, you'll have to forgive me today. We had daylight savings time on Sunday, I think it was, and I didn't even know it was happening. And for some reason this year, it's really put me out of whack this week. So if I sound like I'm kind of just trailing off to nowhere, that might be why I'm exhausted today. And I got my cat right beside me here, and he's snoring away. So if you hear any snoring, it's just my little kitty cat over, well, my giant kitty cat over here, who likes having his belly rubbed. So, so I thought I'd go a little bit different today. Rather than talk about a specific location or anything like that, I thought I'd talk about something specific, as in negativity. Negative spirits, negative entities, anything like that, that I personally have experienced. Now, I know I've said before in other vlogs that I'd say about 99% of all ghostly activity is benign. It's like, like the ghosts don't care about you any more than you care about them, right? It's like, they're there, there's ghosts everywhere, there's ghosts all the time, most of them don't care what people are doing. But there are that 1% that is very negative. And I have, in my time, it's not just all like something that happened within a week or something. This is years and years and years that this has happened. I have had a few negative experiences now. When I say negative, it could either be something that terrified me or scared me, made me feel uncomfortable, or made me feel sad. So it's not just it's not just feeling the scared. It's any negative feeling, really, and sadness is one. And I did feel sadness in one thing. So I think I'll talk about that, and I hope you enjoy it. They're not a lot of experiences, but I'll also maybe talk a little bit on my thoughts on what they could be. And then we'll just go from there. I'm just winging it today. So I've written a few experiences down in my little books, and just said this is what it is. Go. So I'm kind of ad-libbing my way through this today. So I hope you enjoy it, and we shall begin. Now, when people wonder what a negative entity is, I honestly believe that it's merely a jerk ghost. Like it's the nicest way to put it. But there's always talk of demons and entities that are like elementals and things like that. And I'm not 100% believing that. I honestly don't believe in like demons per se. I don't feel that there is some sort of force out there just to terrify the human race. I honestly think that's a little conceited of us, that there's something that they think that we're so important that we have to be destroyed. It just doesn't, to me, it doesn't make any sense. Other people may not believe that, may not believe me, and that's okay. And I don't have to believe them. But all these things about demons taking people over and knocking 3 times is mocking the Trinity, I don't buy into that kind of stuff. But that's just me. I mean, I may be proven wrong someday, I don't know. I do believe that there are entities that are not human. Like, I do believe some not all shadow people, but some shadow people may be just something from a different dimension. Not necessarily evil. I think basically it's all bad ghosts, bad spirit people. I don't feel like, it almost seems like, as soon as a person dies, they think that the spirit will become good or something, and that's not going to happen. If you were a jerk in life, you're going to probably be a jerk in death. If you were a serial killer in life, you're still going to be an asshole in death. You're still going to be a bad spirit. And if you can, you are going to do bad things. And I think that's kind of where this goes. The residual energy that can be left behind in a bad location, like one of the things I'm going to be talking about is a prison. Naturally, there's so much negativity in there. The residual energy that's left behind is going to be negative. So, I honestly, truly believe, I'd say 99.9% of all negative entities out there are just bad spirits. People who were once human and are now in the afterlife, continuing to do what they were doing in human form, just in a different form, whether it be tormenting, physically hurting. Thank God I've never felt that problem, and all these things, so that's what I think it is. That's what I believe the negative entities that bother people are just dead people who were jerks in life and are now jerks in death. That's my theory. But again, it could be wrong, and you don't have to agree with me. That's just my thought process on it. So we'll get to our first story right now. All right, so the first location I'm going to talk about is a place that I went to with a group. I travel to certain places with a group called Haunted Hamilton, and it's a great group, and I've gone to places that I probably would not have been able to go to without them organizing it and everything, and it's awesome. Haunted Hamilton is awesome. Check out their website, hauntedhamilton.com. And yeah, so one of the places that I went to was the Ohio State Reformatory, and that is an old prison, a really old prison, and that's where they shot, I think, Air Force One. I know they shot Shawshank Redemption there, and to talk about Shawshank Redemption for a second, apparently the cast and crew also had ghostly encounters while there too. So it's not just going to be me who talks about something. Now, when you think about you're going to a prison, right? Obviously, you're going to think, yeah, it's a prison. Of course, there's going to be negative energy there. You're going there expecting negative energy there, so naturally, that's what you're going to experience. That's not always true. I've been to other places that you would think a lot of negative energy lies, and maybe it does, but when I was there, nothing. I experienced nothing. No negativity, no, I never felt fear or anything like that. And like I went to, I think it was in West Virginia, the Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, which is what they called it back then. I'm not calling it. That's the name of it, the Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. I think Ghost Adventures went there. They did a live show there once. But you would think that place, which was an insane asylum back in the early days of psychiatric care, where, you know, the patient really wasn't number one on the agenda of the staff. And so you would think there'd be tons of negative energy and tons of like terrible feeling there and stuff. And I went there and just took pictures and had a great time and felt nothing, had no experiences whatsoever. In Ontario, I went to the Kingston Penitentiary. Again, like that's where the piece of crap Bernardo was held for a long time, before they closed it and moved all the prisoners elsewhere. You know, like bad people were there. So you would think, okay, that's where I'm going to feel the horrible, terrible energies and stuff. No. I felt fine. I was great. Like, they were talking about what they want to do with the place. I'm suggesting turning it into condos or like loft apartments, you know? So I'm like, that would be, you know, and I still think that they should do that, but that's just me. I think people would go for that. But this place, the Ohio State Reformatory, I feel just in one section. And it was a section, I can't remember the cell block. I think it was D. I can't remember. But they had multi-levels. Not a lot of prisons have this, where there's like cells here, and then they have level 2, and there's cells there, and there's level 3. And they're all in different sections. And I think the one that I felt the worst at was section D. And these ones held like the worst of the worst type of thing, where they had the cells, and then they had a space for the hallway for people to walk up and down, and then they had this. But on the upper levels, they had a wall or like a bars built on here because the prisoners used to be able to push the guards over the balcony and to their death. So there was bars on there. And so I'm not afraid of heights and stuff, but as soon as I walked in here, I felt so scared. Like we're talking terror. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling really nauseous and uncomfortable. And I felt that way during the tour, just thinking, okay, I'm in an old location with musty smells and stuff like that, and black mold and stuff. Okay, maybe that's what I'm sensing, and that's what's making me feel nauseous. But then once they did the tour and then they let us go and do our own thing, I went in there again with my brother. My brother keeps me sane, so he comes to these things with me. I was just like, I don't like this. I don't like this whatsoever. But I ignored my gut feeling, and I was like, you know what? How often am I going to be able to come here? So again, I'm taking pictures. I took a really awesome picture. If I remember, I will show it to you on here, because I think it's a really awesome picture, and it's just of the cell block, just like on one floor, just down there, and you'll see the bars on the one side, and then you see the bars where the cells are, and it's just, to me, it's an amazing picture, and I like it very much. But so I gotta toot my own horn there. But yeah, so I took pictures, and I had a good time everywhere else but in this block. And we kept going up levels. I think this one had 6 levels up. And I felt so proud of myself because I'm going up and up and up as more and more feeling sick and scared and terrorized. And I'm just like, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. Because I didn't feel this way in section A, you know, like, or anything like that. I just felt it in this one section. And all the cells were open. The doors were open. And we're walking along. And it was just my peripheral vision. And like I've said, I've got really good peripheral vision. Like I said, I can see my hand right here, just looking up like this. Not looking here, but just looking up there, I can see my hand. And it was the same thing as when we were in the abandoned house. My brother and I went to the abandoned house recently. I walked past and I saw a young man with my peripheral vision over here. And it was like, I'm like, okay, I'm walking, nervous. And I just stopped. It was like the entire cell was lit up, and there was a young man sitting in his cell, his hands like, you know, down like this, and he was just like, and his head was down, and he looked so sad. And it was just for a brief second. I walked past the cell, stopped dead, and my brother's like, are you okay? What's wrong? And I'm like, and I literally just walked backwards and looked into the cell, and it was dark, and there was nobody in there. But what I felt with him was not all the terror and fear that I felt was gone, and it was just filled with this immense sadness, like this terrible sadness. And it was just when I walked past that. After that, it was gone, and the scaredy cat in me came back up. But yeah, it was just so sad. And all I can tell you about him is he was wearing, like, almost looked like it was blue, bluish color uniform, I guess, or prison uniform. And he had dark hair, and he was Caucasian. And that's really all I can tell you. And then I got the impression he was a young man, maybe because of his hair. It was like thick, bushy, brownish, dark brown hair. And yeah, it was just immensely sad. So and then I kept going, and the fear and the discomfort never left the entire time I was in there. And all I kept telling Braden, I'm like, oh, I don't like this one, and he's feeling nothing, and he's like, okay, you know, like, he's an awesome skeptic, because he's one of those ones that says, I don't believe everybody, but I know you. And I know you believe what you're feeling, so I believe that you believe it, whether or not it happens to me. So he's not like one of those skeptics who just goes, well, you're stupid. And I'm just, you know, and you're back there going, what? He is one of those skeptics. It's like, I believe you are feeling what you're feeling. I believe you believe what you're believing, and I'm not going to call you stupid for it. And that's the best way to be a skeptic. So if you are a skeptic over ghosts, do not go up to somebody who's a full believer and go, you're just an idiot. You know, support them in the only way that you can, and telling them that they're stupid is not a way of supporting somebody. So I kept telling him I was uncomfortable in this cell block, and finally I said, but I'm going to do it. I did not react to my gut. Nothing bad happened to me. The only thing that happened to me was that young man in the cell. And it was weird because no other place I felt this way. We went into the solitary confinement cells, and those things were horrible. Like, it wasn't the feeling, it was the actual cell. It was like the size of this couch. You know, like, I'm a short person. I'm only 4'11", and I can touch either side of these things. So that, I mean, it was like maybe 6 feet by 6 feet. Like, it was horrible. And, you know, like, it was just an awful, awful place. I didn't feel what I felt in that one cell block there. There was even, like, there was an old chapel church type of thing. Didn't feel anything there. The outside grounds, didn't feel anything there. You know, it was just in that one cell block. And we were there long enough that we went around and did everything twice. And in that time, I didn't want to go back in. And Braden was like, well, do you want to just... And I took a couple of steps in, and I said, nope. I just stepped and turned around and walked back out. And so, yeah, that was interesting. But, so that's what I think it is, you know, like, and to validate it for myself, maybe not for anybody else, but to validate it for me, I was telling somebody who was also there, she is one of the people who kind of is in charge of Haunted Hamilton. She's not the owner, but she works kind of alongside her. And I was saying that, yeah, I saw this guy, and he kind of, this is my impression of what he looked like, although I didn't see him face on. And she was like, in cell block D, right? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, I saw him, but I saw him face on, and he just sort of looked up at me and reached out and then disappeared. And I was like, oh my God, okay, that's interesting. So when we described what we saw to each other, we realized we probably were talking about the same person, because she also described a young man with dark hair. So that validated it for me that I did see something, that I saw what I saw. So, so yeah, that is the Ohio State Reformatory, where they shot Shawshank Redemption. It is actually an awesome place. And I do suggest, if you can get there, if you like touring old prisons, and if you like haunted locations, it's definitely a place to go. I'm hoping soon. I would love to go to Eastern State Penitentiary. That place is supposed to be terrifying, but at the same time, I just see video footage of that gorgeous building, and I just want to take pictures and maybe have a little experience while I'm there. But it's on my bucket list of places to go. So yeah, that was Ohio State Reformatory, and we shall continue. Okay, another thing that I've experienced that I've been told is negative, and to me felt negative, was the times that I've seen red eyes. Nothing else, just the eyes, red eyes. I've been told that this is a negative experience, negative spirit, negative energy, something that doesn't want you around. And the couple of experiences that I had, I believe it. I truly believe it. Now, at the same time, you have to look at this with an open mind, but also a logical mind, because red eyes can be a nighttime creature. An actual, maybe a wolf, maybe like a nighttime predator. Owls, I know that there are owls out there that have red eyes, and owls can get pretty big. So you have to think about those things too. Don't just sit there and go, oh my God, red eyes is too clearly a ghost. So, but yeah, there's a couple of ones that I'm looking at and I'm going, I don't think those were owls, and they were too high in the sky to be a wolf. There's no wolf just hanging out in the sky, or even in a tree. So, the first one is a short story. I was in a cemetery with a friend at night, which, I don't think you're supposed to do, but whatever. It was the only time we had to go. It was in Oakville, Ontario, and it was an old cemetery. My friend, he had just done a play. Actually, he was acting in a play, and it was in Oakville. And afterwards, he's like, "Oh, actually, you like cemeteries? You like old cemeteries?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, there's one down the street. Blah blah blah. You want to go and see it?" And I'm like, "Right now? I mean, you won't be able to see much." And he's like, "Yeah, let's just go now, since we're here." And I'm like, "Okay, I don't go to Oakville very often, so sure." So we went to the cemetery, and as soon as I got out of the car, I'm like, get back in the car and drive away. Like, it was just like the most unwelcoming feeling I have had in any cemetery. Usually I get there, and if I have any feelings at all in cemetery, they're all like, hey, welcome to the show, come on in, It's like, but this one, it just felt awful. I was just like, oh my God, the nausea started building up, and I'm like, and again, some people might think, well, you're in a cemetery, it's like the prison, of course it's going to be sad, and I don't agree with that one. I don't. Cemeteries are usually just made for the living, right? Like it's to store the dead, but the cemeteries, the stones and everything, that's made for the living. Because frankly, once you're dead, I don't think you're going to care so too much. But like I've said before, you could come back and see how your tombstone's doing, or if you visited somebody's grave in life, you might be visiting them in death, and things like that. So I was like, why am I feeling this way? I felt great all night, so I don't understand why I'm feeling this way. And I tried to ignore it, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna keep walking around with my friend, and he's showing me different stones and stuff, and he's like, well, this one looks cool and this one looks cool. I'm like, yep, and I'm just like, I just want to get the hell out of here. Like, I just want to leave so bad. And so we're walking along, and then all of a sudden I look up, and there's these pair of red eyes, and they're just glaring at me. And it was a fight or flight moment. It was just like, I'm leaving. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm done. I'm going. And he's like, what's going on? I said, there's a pair of red eyes right over there. And he didn't see them. And he didn't see these eyes. I'm like, right up there. Right up there. There is a part of me that was going, is it an owl in the tree? Like, it was like kind of in a treed up area. So I'm thinking it could be an owl. But the feeling of dread and the feeling of, if I don't leave now, I'm going to be hurt, just flew through me. And I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm done. Done. See you later. I'm done. Out. Bye. And he's like, where are you going? I said, I don't care. I'm going anywhere but here. I'm not going to stay here anymore. And so I took off and got in my car. And I think we went for coffee or something afterwards. And we were at like a Tim Hortons or something that was open late. And I just was like, I said the feeling that I was feeling and the red eyes and stuff. As soon as I saw those eyes, it felt like if I don't leave, I'm going to be hurt. So I'm like, get out of here now. And I was like, okay. And he was like, all right, I didn't see anything. And he does believe in spirits and stuff like that. So he believed me. He just didn't see it. And we were looking in the same spot. So I don't know why he didn't see it. And I don't know why I did. I'm thinking maybe it was somebody that just didn't like me. So it's, I don't know why I'm wonderful, but it's maybe they just didn't like me and they wanted me to leave or something like that. But interesting epilogue to that story. My friend did go back during the daytime, maybe about a month or so afterwards, and he said I didn't see any red eyes, but I couldn't stay there. He said I was walking around that area where you kind of had your little wig out and leave, and he says it was just this tension, this tense anger that was just like not. He wasn't angry, but he could feel somebody was angry at him. And he's like, I couldn't stay there. And this was in the day. So that's kind of like maybe a validation. I don't know if it was really a validation or whatever, but he felt uncomfortable in there too. Something really got to him. So yeah, so that was that cemetery. Now, story number 2, I'm not going to name the location because it is a public location that you can go to, and it's beautiful, and maybe someday I'll do something about it because other things have happened there, but I did have a very negative experience with somebody else there as well. And what I'm about to tell you, I do not suggest you do it. It is a big no-no, and if you get caught, you will get in trouble. So we went there after dark. The place closes at dark. So it's like from I think it's like from dawn to dusk. It's open like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or something like that. And then it's one of those places. It's like a wooded area, nice beautiful woods and park and area. And I think it might be part of the Bruce Trail, but I'm not 100% sure. It's gorgeous. It's a beautiful place in the daytime. Now, I had been there at night once before, but that was with a guided tour through Haunted Hamilton, actually. And I went there in 2000. It was the very first thing I ever did with Haunted Hamilton. And this time it was nighttime, but that was sanctioned and everybody knew we were going to be there. And I did have an experience that night, so maybe someday I'll talk about that too. But anyway, I went there with a friend and we were just like, yeah, we're told it's haunted. Let's go there. You were young, dumb, and stupid. And so let's go there. But they have gates that come down when they close this place up. So you can't get in. So we parked on the outside of the gate, crossed over, and just wandered through. And this is how dumb we were. We were young and dumb. No flashlight. So no flashlight, pitch black sky. I don't even know if there was a moon that night. I can't remember, but I just remember it was really, really black. And we're going to go traipsing off into the woods without any source of light. So yeah, that was not a good experience. So into the woods we go. We're wandering around, and as we get further into the woods, I started feeling more and more uncomfortable and feeling like this was not right. Like something in here doesn't feel right. And it was like, okay, I'm walking into the forest in the dark. God knows what's out here. This is what's entering my head once I'm already in there, right? So it's not like I should have thought of these things beforehand. Like maybe I should bring something just in case there's somebody here. And there has been rumors of this area having, I don't know, satanic ritual stuff going on in there. I don't know how true that is. It might just be a bunch of sadists who, want to torture animals or something. I don't know. But still, that's still dangerous. You know, you're also in the forest, so there are animals that are predators, and you're just like this little 4'11" walking piece of bait. So it's just like, you know, so I'm thinking, okay, maybe that's what's going through my head right now is, oh, I should run a flashlight, you know, and I'm feeling, but as we're going further and further along the trail, I'm getting more and more uncomfortable to the point where I'm feeling sick and I'm feeling nauseous. And I think maybe by the time we're like halfway through, I turned to my friend and said, you know, I think we should go back. This is a really bad idea. And he went, no, I'm not done. And that kind of threw me off guard. You know, it was just like, oh, okay. You know, like he doesn't usually talk to me that way, but all right. So we kept going, and the further we got, the more nauseous I felt, and the more scared I felt. I felt very uncomfortable, very scared. And I was just like, no, I really think we should go. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. And he just sort of snapped at me. He's like, no, I'm not ready. And I was like, okay. And then we finally get to one spot. And by this time, I feel so sick that I'm sure I'm going to vomit. Like, I was just like, I can't do this. And we arrive at this one spot that we were trying to get to, and we were trying to see the fabled, you know, ghost, that lady in white thing that happens and whatever. And nothing like that happened. All I know is that I felt terror again. Like, I just was like, I cannot stay here any longer. And I turned to my friend again, and for the third time, I'm like, no, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not staying here anymore. We're leaving. And I'm his ride. So I didn't want to just abandon him here. And he was like, well, I'm not ready to go. And he was like really short-tempered with me, and just, he just was not, something was wrong with him. And to the point where I was like, I wasn't quite trusting myself being with him. And I'd known this guy for a while, so I didn't understand why he was acting this way, because this is not his normal behavior. And I'm like, is he gonna turn on me or something? And you know, like, I started thinking about him, like going, okay, is something going on with him? Is he gonna turn around and like attack me? Like, this is really freaking me out. So I just said to him, I said, I will wait for you in the car, and that's it. But I'm leaving here. You can stay as long as you want. I will wait for you in the car. And he was just like, fine, I'm not leaving. So I said, fine. And I turned and walked away. By myself. In the dark. In a forest. With no form of light or protection. So I'm just like, but at that time, all I wanted to do was get the fuck out of there. Like, I was just like, go, 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 go. And at that point, all the senses just start triggering high voltage in your brain, right? You're just like, you can hear every snap of every twig, every leaf being blown. You can see everything all of a sudden, and all the hairs are standing up all over your body. You're just like, yeah, you are on high alert everywhere. But I got back to my car. So I was just like, finally got back to my car, was sitting in the car waiting for my friend. It was a beautiful summer night. It was gorgeous. So I'm just outside the barriers in my car in the driver's seat. I've got the window down because the night's like very beautiful and calm, and I've got my arm up on the side of the thing, and I just sort of look up in the sky, and there's like no trees around at all, and there's a set of red eyes staring at me. And I'm like, now this is before the penitentiary. I had never experienced red eyes before, ever. And it took me aback. And I did try to rationalize it again. I did try to go, is that an owl? Can owls levitate in midair with no body? Like, it was just a set of red eyes. And I'm just staring at it. And then, so this is an old car. I rolled up the window. And as soon as the window was up, they disappeared. But I rolled them down, and they were there again. And that's what surprised me. And it wasn't like I was imagining it, and it wasn't like there was any sort of polarizing filter or something that was turn off the red color, and, like that type of, I don't know if I'm explaining that right. Some things are red sensitive, and some glass can cut off certain colors, I think. And it wasn't that. So, but when I rolled the window down again, there they were, and they were staring at me. And it wasn't just like they were just like this. They would blink. Like, it was freaking me out. And I was thinking, it's not an owl because there's no tree, and it would literally just be levitating in the air because it's not flying. So I had no idea what this was. So I'm like, okay, it's, obviously not a wolf. It's, we don't have bears in that area. So I'm like, it's not a bear. So what the fuck is this thing? And eventually I just ended up rolling the window up and they were gone and that was it. I was going to wait for my friend because I don't want to just abandon him here at this location. But I was getting impatient. I really wanted to leave. It felt like maybe 45 minutes, but it was probably like maybe 5 or 10 minutes before he showed back up. But he stayed on the inside of the barrier, where I was on the outside of the barrier to get into the park. And he was just like this. So I come out of the car and I look over and the eyes are gone. So I'm like, okay, at least that's done. Okay. So I was like, that's gone, whatever. Red eyes are gone. And he was just like, no, come with me. And I said, where? And he's like, no, just come with me. I want to show you something. I'm like, no, you come with me. I want to show you something, as in we're going to show you my car and we're going to drive away. And he's like, no, come with me. I said, no, you come here and get in the car. And he's like, no. And he wouldn't come over. And I was just, and all that kept, whereas I ignored my gut at the Reformatory, I did not ignore my gut here, because all that kept running through my head is, do not cross this barrier. Do not cross this barrier. Do not go over there. And my friend he was just like, and it was just like, this is not my friend. I don't know what this is, but this is not my friend. And he's just like, no, come with me. Come with me. And I'm like, no, I'm not going. I said, I won't leave you here, but I am not going over there. You come over here and get in my car. And this went on for maybe a little while. And then finally he's like, I'm not coming over. And he sat down right on the other side of the barrier. And kept reaching out to me, and I wouldn't touch him. And he was just like, you come here. And I'm like, no. And this back and forth, he's sitting down on the ground, and he would not come over. And then finally, again, it felt like maybe half an hour, but I don't think it was that long. But that's what it felt like anyway. He stood up, and he came across the barrier, and as soon as he crossed the barrier, he just went silent. And I was like, get in the car. And I opened the door, kind of basically threw him in the car, into the driver's seat. And went into the driver's seat, immediately started the car and just took off. I didn't say anything, or just started the car and took off. And he immediately kind of went lethargic. Like, he went to sleep. Like, he just went like this, put his head back. I can't remember if he had a seatbelt on or not. I honestly don't remember. And all I was thinking was, why is he acting this way? Like, this is really weird. And then I thought, maybe his blood sugar's low. Like, I have had low blood sugar, and trust me, it's not a pleasant feeling. You become very obnoxious. You become short-tempered. You break into sweats. So I'm thinking, is it possible that that's what's going on? Okay, let's get him to a store, and I'll get him like some juice or some candy or something like that. So we get to a store, and it was weird because the whole drive to this variety store, it's late at night, and it's the only things that are open, right? So we're driving there, and he would be out. He'd be like this, like just out. And then he would pop his head up and he would say something. I honestly don't remember anything he said, but he would just say something. And then he would go back down and he'd just be like out. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe his blood sugar is low. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a rational explanation rather than he's possessed, because I'm not sure I believe in possession. Even back then I wasn't sure. So I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on with this guy. So I get to a variety store. He stays in the car. And okay, I gotta do a little side note here. My religion is Wicca. We don't believe in like the devil. Like, we don't believe in hell. We don't believe in the devil. There's no dude with a pitchfork down below who, tries to drag you down to hell and all that kind of stuff. I don't believe in that. Again, that's just my own personal belief. You don't have to believe it, and I don't have to believe you, so we're all good. But but what I found really interesting, and to me it was not the devil so much, but somebody trying to either mess with me or tell me something. I get to where my location is, and I looked at the speedometer. Now, that's this particular speedometer in this old car would tell you how many kilometers you went in a day. Like, if you pressed the 0 and restarted it, it would be like restart basically all the kilometers that you do that day. And so I get to the variety store. I turn the car off. I just happened to look down at the speedometer, and it said that I traveled 66.6 kilometers that day. And again, that's not something that I sit there and go, oh my God, it's a sign of the beast or anything like that. But that made me think, huh. Like, it's just like, gave me the kind of heebie jeebies. So, again, as I'm saying, I don't think it was the devil giving me a notice of some sort, but I think maybe somebody was either messing with me or warning me or, just trying to say, hey, behave. But so after I left the car, went and got my friend and got him some juice, got him a chocolate bar, and sat in the car with him while he drank the juice. And he did start to come around after that, and he felt much better. So then we started talking again, and I didn't make any mention of anything. I was just like, let's just keep talking and yada yada yada, and kind of get back to normal. And then I felt comfortable driving him home because I didn't want to leave him alone because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if it was a medical thing, a spiritual thing, or anything like that. So yeah, that was that. And to me, that was scary for a myriad of reasons. Seeing the red eyes, being an idiot and going off into the forest without any sort of light or weaponry or anything to take care of herself. My friend, and acting all strange, and worried about his health. So there was so many things that was just negative. And now looking back at it, I don't know if maybe it was a negative entity that was trying to torment us. Maybe there was something attached to me. Maybe there was something attached to him. Maybe it was a medical issue. But I think now it was something telling us to get the hell out. Whether it was trying to tell us because we were there when we weren't supposed to be, so get out because you're not supposed to be here at this time of night, or get out because there's something else here that could hurt you. So maybe it wasn't so negative after all. Maybe it was something trying to protect us. I don't know. That's just something, a food for thought. But that was that experience. And that happened in 2000, I think it was 2002, 2003. And I'm still friends with that guy. So I think we've kissed and made up. So yeah, so that was an interesting one. And looking back on it now, I'm not sure if it was completely negative. I know that I felt negative. I felt fear. I felt terror. I felt nausea. But I'm thinking if it wasn't something, like if it wasn't a negative entity, I'm thinking maybe it was something trying to warn us to either make us leave or to warn us that something there that's not good. So that's my thought. Now, this story, I'm actually going to change the names of the other two people involved because I am not friends with them anymore. And they're both females, so I kind of need to name them. So I'll name one Amanda and one Carrie. So this was actually at Amanda's place. And it was her house. She lived there with her father and her brother, I think it was. And I was with my friend Carrie at the time, and we were hanging out and doing whatever, and she's like, would you like to go meet Amanda? And I hadn't met this person yet, so I'm like, sure, yeah, let's go. And she kept praising Amanda, saying she's the greatest person in the world, so I'm like, great, okay, yeah, let's go find this wonderful human being. So we get to her house, and everything's fine. Nothing unusual about the day. It was, we were about, I think, maybe 20 years old, just hanging out doing what 20-year-olds do and stuff. And we knock on her door, and she opens the door, and she's like, hey guys, and she's really bubbly and she's really nice, and come on in. So we walk in the door, and as soon as I cross that threshold, I'm like, get me out of this house. It was just like, it was the weirdest feeling. And I was like, this girl is very pleasant. What's going on? Why am I feeling this way? And I think her brother was there, and I met him, and he seemed like an okay guy. So I'm just like, I want to go. I want to go. Like, literally, I was like, don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. And at first I thought I'm very awkward when I meet people for the first time. And back then it was almost panic stricken when I would meet people for the first time. So I'm thinking maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe I'm just not comfortable meeting new people in my life. I don't know. But we went to the kitchen, we sat down, and I'm literally like, I want to go. 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 And I was like, I don't want to be here. And Don't know why. I just felt the most unwelcome feeling ever in there. And just like, I didn't know where it was coming from. It was like oozing hate in the house. Not the people, but the house was like oozing hate. And I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to be here. Oh my God, we got to get out of here. And so I'm sitting there and I'm just rocking back and forth and I'm doing one of these, I'm sort of looking around the place going, okay, all right, okay, whatever, let's go, let's go, let's go. And then finally, I think it was Amanda. She's like, well, we all want to go to Tim Hortons, like Timmy's? And I'm like, yes! It's just like, snap, yes! And I stood up before before Carrie said yes, before anybody else, I stood up and actually left the house. I didn't wait for anybody else to get shoes on or anything like that. I picked up my shoes, walked out on the porch, put my shoes on, and got to Carrie's car. And I'm just like, so I'm standing out the outside, and she comes out, and she's like, what the hell was that? And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you were so rude with my friend. I said, I had to get out of that house. I said, I can't explain what it was. All I know is it was the most unwelcoming feeling ever. I just felt nothing but hatred, not from the people, but from the house. And she just her mouth just sort of dropped. And I was like, what are you talking, what's wrong? And she's like, I can't believe you're picking up on that. And I said, oh yeah, the second I walked through the door, I was like, I wanted to turn around and run back out. I said, I don't like it in there. I'm never going back in that house. And she says, that's from 6 years ago. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And when they were all about 14 years old, Amanda had a party at her house, and she invited a whole bunch of people, and she did what they all did what most 14-year-old kids do, which is, let's have a seance. Let's either pull up the Ouija board or let's have a seance. So they decided to do that, and what Carrie told me was that they all sat in a circle, and they said, well, who should we try and call up? And somebody in their infinite wisdom said, let's call up the devil. So, like I said before, I don't necessarily believe in the devil or Satan or Lucifer or whatever you want to call this entity, but I do believe that there are human spirits who are total jerks who emulate and mimic what we perceive the devil to be. So, they're just like everybody except, according to Carrie, except her, thought this was a great idea. So they all sat together, and as they were trying to call up the devil, Carrie said that she's in her head with her eyes closed going, God, 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 God. I don't know. Carrie was, I don't know how to put this delicately, but a narcissistic, horrible, psychotic human being. So that's the nicest way I can describe her. So I wasn't sure how much of this story I was to believe because it was coming out of her mouth. Because I even knew back then when we were friends that she was a narcissistic, psychotic human being. So, so she's telling me this story of them trying to call up the devil. Her eyes are closed. And she said that all of a sudden, everybody else started screaming. And so she's like, oh my God, what? She wouldn't open her eyes. And she said that other people told her afterwards that they saw in the center of the circle that they had formed this castle in a swirling mist that has just sort of appeared in front of them. And I'm like, okay, I'm not sure how much of that I'm going to buy, but okay, if that's what you guys think you saw, then that's what you saw. And then she says, didn't see that, but I did hear. And what she described was it sounded like somebody had picked up the washing machine in the room beside them and smashed it on the floor. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. That would be weird. And she said, I didn't see this castle in a swirling mist, but I did hear the washing machine rise up and slam down. So I was like, okay, it's being Carrie. I'm not exactly sure if I believe her because she is lying about everything else in her life. So I wasn't sure if this was true as well or another fabrication. So we get to Tim Hortons and we're sitting in there having our coffee or whatever. I was a Diet Coke drinker back then, so I was drinking Diet Coke. And Amanda comes in and she sits down and Carrie says, you are not going to believe Kyla just told me blah, 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 and how she feels in the house and stuff like that. And the only reason why I now believe Carrie's story is because Amanda told me the exact same story. Without sitting in the same car, telling the same, listening to the same story and going, yeah, and then this happened. No, she told me the exact same story, only she saw the castle with the swirling mist and the washing machine. And she says, and since that day, for the past 6 years, we have had negative something in the house. And she said she saw red eyes in her own house. And that's kind of went on with this whole thing about red eyes being something very negative and whatnot. And she said, yeah, I was coming out of the shower and I had my robe on and I walk out and right outside the bathroom door were these red eyes staring at her. So, yeah. So I actually never went back into that house ever again. We would go over to Amanda's place to pick her up or to go to her place to get to another location. And she'd be like, come on in. I'm like, no, I'm good. I just would stay out on the porch. I would never, never, never cross that threshold ever again. I never went back into that house. So that was another, I guess, red eye story because she saw red eyes. And I think out of all of them, that was the most uncomfortable feeling in any location I've had. Even more uncomfortable than in the prison. But that, again, was years later. So this is all back in my early 20s when I was young and dumb. The prison was much, much later. Okay, this story, it's gonna be a little weird, because it happened to me, but how do I put this? I wasn't aware of anything happening to me until it was done. That's gonna be really weird to explain, and it's one of those things where people could go, well, you just changed, who you were, you just changed your outer experiences, and it, turned better. So that's entirely possible. I have no idea. It's just, I'm not the one who noticed the problem. So it's really strange. As an adult, I was not a happy person. I made a lot of poor choices, got into some bad relationships, and covered up my misery with junk food. So I gained a lot of weight too. So I was, all in all, just an unhappy person. And I don't know if this has anything to do with it, or if it was a psychological thing, or if it was a spiritual thing, or a combination of everything. But I had a friend, and I don't speak to this person either, so I'll call her Jennifer. First names are popping in my head. So Jennifer called me up one day, and this is about a week after I was at her place. She had, I think it was like a Tupperware party type of thing, like one of those parties where you go and buy stuff from some woman who's standing up at the front of the room trying to sell stuff. And it was like Tupperware or something, and that was about a week before, and I remember after I left her place, I felt great, which was weird because usually I felt sick or I felt, just miserable and depressed and stuff like that. People thought I was bipolar, and stuff, and it was just like, that week I felt great. I felt like maybe a weight had been lifted off my shoulders or, just everything. I was just going with the flow, I wasn't like I was on cloud nine and I won the lottery or anything like that. I was just going with the flow and living life and accepting it. And I got a phone call from Jennifer a week after this party, and I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, what have you been doing? And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? she's like, what have you been doing? Like, have you been doing any spell casting? She knows I'm Wicca. And so she's like, what kind of spell casting have you been doing? And I'm like, that's really none of your business if I have been. I don't think at that time I was doing a lot of spell casting. I'm not very good at it, so I don't do it too often. But I was like, I don't think that's really your business what I've been doing with my religion. And she's like, no, you don't understand. Have you been doing anything negative? Have you been trying to, like hurt people or something? And I'm like, no, that goes entirely against what Wicca's all about. The main creed, the witch's creed, is harm none. So why would I do spells to harm people? Like, that's just ridiculous. And I mean, I know, just like everything else in every other religion, there are good witches and there are bad witches. And I'm a good witch, so I don't do bad spells. I don't do black magic. So I was just like, no, I don't know. Why would you say that? And she's like, because something happened after you left our party that you need to know about. And you're the only one I can think of that this would happen to. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, what's going on? And she said that after I left, because I left early, I had somewhere else I had to be. So I left the party early. Someone came after I had left, or was leaving. Like, I don't think I met this person. So I was either like leaving, getting into my car, and this person was coming up I do remember seeing somebody walking up the walkway when I was leaving. So maybe this is the person she was talking about. And she said that this person who walked up the walkway to the party after I had just left was a psychic, who was a medium, who could see things. If you ever watched The Dead Files and Amy, I think her name's Amy Allen, and how she describes things, she kind of, that's how this person described this psychic, and then that she can see things, sense things, and she knows how to, you know, release them and things, you know, if she's been burdened by spirits and stuff, she can release them. And I drove away, I guess, and she said she looked at the house and there was this negative entity. She never said spirit, she never said ghost, she said negative entity, who was basically squeezing the house. And she said it was really weird because she was like squeezing my house like an accordion. And I'm like, okay. And she says this thing was attached to somebody who had been at my party, and then it noticed her looking at it, and so it attached itself to her. And so I'm like, okay. And she's like, no, this thing apparently will make your life miserable, will make you unhappy, will make you sad, because it's feeding off your negative energy, and it makes it bigger and bigger and bigger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And it keeps you negative because it wants to keep feeding off that. It doesn't want you to do anything crazy like kill yourself, because then that energy is gone and it needs something else to feed off. So it just keeps you negative, in a negative state. And I'm like, all right. And she says, so she saw this thing and told my friend Jennifer about it, and said, I know how to get rid of it from you and from me. I can go and do the right incantations and get rid of it, but it's going to go back to the person who created it. So, and then their life is going to be feeling negative and horrible again and everything like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. So she's like, I'm wondering if that person who, you know, conjured this thing up was you. And I'm like, no. I was like, I would not call up anything like that. Like, no, absolutely not. And she's like, okay, because this is really weird. You know, like my friend, she came and she took it and she went off to wherever she did to get rid of it. And apparently then it's supposed to go directly, leave her and go back to its creator. So if you created it, it's back. I said, no. I said, Jennifer, trust me, this has been like the best week I've had in years. I said, I've been waking up, you know, feeling good and things like that. And I said, and basically you're telling me all this now. I mean, you know that would send me into a panic, right? And she's like, yeah. I said, I'm just sitting here going, okay, if this is a problem, how do we solve it? Like, I went from having an absolute panic to freaking out going, oh my God, I'm possessed by something, you know, like that type of thing, to, all right, let's fix this then. You know, so she's like, okay, then maybe it's not you. I said, no. I said, I first off would not do any spells that would, you know, call something negative forward. And yeah, if it was attached to me, it isn't now, because now I feel really good. I actually feel like I've been in a good mood all week long. So she wanted me to meet this person, and I said, sure, yeah. So I think it was maybe a few days later, we all met for a coffee somewhere, and the more I thought about it, the more I thought of a story that happened maybe about 12 years earlier, again, when I'm around 22. And again, this goes back to my old friend who's no longer my friend, Carrie. And I was sitting in her basement with her, and we were chatting away. She had a furnished basement. It was kind of like just another room type of thing. And we're sitting there chatting away and stuff, and she was telling me just little stories here and there, and I noticed this little cloud floating above her head. It was just sort of like a darker cloud, just sort of floating there, and I just happened to look up at it, and I'm like, And as soon as I looked at it, it went vroom, and it flew towards me and flew behind me. And then there was a picture in a frame on the wall, and it went and it shook on the wall, just, and I was like, okay, that was weird. And she's like, what? I said, oh, just this picture frame. And she was telling me about her house being haunted and all this kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was a ghost. And didn't think anything of it. And then I noticed, the more I thought about it, it was about that time that my life went to shit. So everything went wrong. I made all the wrong choices. I made bad food choices, bad relationship choices. Everything just sort of went. And I handled it all very, very badly. And incidentally, her life that she always complained about and said was terrible started to improve at that same time. So that was interesting. And I thought, okay, so maybe whatever this was, she conjured it up. And then I thought more about that, and then went, oh, I thought long and hard. She had a brother, and when he was a teenager, he got into some devil worshipping. And he was in his, she told me this story that he was in his bedroom one time, and she was maybe about 11 years old. She didn't know what he was doing, and all of a sudden she heard like a crash and a bang coming from in his bedroom. So, of course, she and her parents all heard this. They ran to the bedroom, and he was huddled in a fetal position on the floor with like candles that had all been burnt out and everything, and the window had been smashed in, like something had come in. And he was just lying there shaking, going back and forth, back and forth. And what she found out later on was that he was trying to summon up a demon to come forth, and I don't know, whatever he wanted it to do. He was a teenager and stupid. And I thought, maybe he's the one that did that. Maybe he's the creator. And then, so I was like, and then I was talking to this psychic woman about it, and I said, this is what I'm coming up with. And I said, because right now I feel pretty good. And, I mean, I was feeling so bad at one time. I remember I was doing my laundry, and I don't even know why I was so sad, but I'm doing laundry, bawling my eyes out in the laundry room. Like, I was just bawling. You know, like, that's how bad my life had gotten for me. I was just like, and I can't help but wonder if maybe this might have had something to do with it. I don't know. So my thought process was, it was attached to the brother, and she somehow noticed it because her brother conjured it up, so he's the creator. She somehow noticed it, and it attached itself to her. And then, like I said, I noticed this weird-ass cloud that was above her head, and then I saw it go right past me. Maybe it attached itself to my back and had been riding my back. And I'm one of those, when I feel full force. So if I'm feeling negative, oh my God, do I feel negative. And it was just feeding and feeding and growing and growing and growing and growing. And I never knew that this was happening. And again, I still am not 100% sure if this is what happened. This is just what somebody had told me. And it didn't leave me until this woman noticed it, and it was the size of a house. And it noticed her noticing it, and decided to leave me alone, knowing it could always go back to me. And so she did whatever incantations that you're supposed to do. I honestly don't know, because I've never heard of this before. And it left her and went back to its creator, which was not me. Maybe it was him, which kind of sucks, because when I knew him, he was a nice guy. So if his life just turned back to crap, then that's a shame. But neither here nor there. It wasn't attached to me anymore. So yeah, that was... I just find that the whole story was just very interesting, a little convoluted. Like, it's like, I hope you were able to follow that. But, you know, and it wasn't, I'm not saying that as soon as this thing was gone, my life was just, you know, a wonderful bed of roses and stuff, because it wasn't. The worst was still yet to come, but it had nothing to do with anything except circumstances that were happening in my life at that time. Didn't have anything to do with ghosts or spirits or anything like that. But, yeah, so I found that one really interesting, and whether or not it's true, I don't know. I actually have a tendency to believe it, because, like I said, not everything went great after that, but I felt better. So, yeah, so now I feel wonderful. So that is pretty much it for the day. My kitty cat's still here. I don't really have anything else. Like I said, this happened for years. It wasn't just like, you know, this happened, you know, Monday, and this happened Wednesday, and this happened Thursday, you know, like this, all these things. So I that's why I don't really fear ghosts too much. You get that adrenaline rush, and you get the hair that stands on the back of your neck. You get that fight or flight thing, because I just think it's something that we don't fully understand, and we're never going to fully understand until we're there, right? So, but I honestly believe that 99.9% of haunting experiences are benign. They might not want you there. They might be warning you to get out because they don't want you there, but I don't think they're going to maliciously go out to hurt you. And I also believe that the 0.1% of the negative energy that you feel is 99.9% people who were bad in life. So if you're bad in life, you're going to be bad in death, and you're going to do what you can because, you don't have the confines of the physical form anymore to keep you back. So you're going to be probably even more bad. So I don't necessarily think it might be demons or shadow people. Shadow people, I should probably do a whole show on that too, because I have my own theories on that as well. And yeah, but yeah, I don't feel like I have any attachments or anything to me anymore. I actually feel quite wonderful and very happy with my life. So if anybody was concerned about that, I don't, I feel great. So on behalf of my kitty, my giant kitty, he's like, what the hell? We're going to say goodbye now. And, oh, he's a kitty cat. Yeah, he's my kitty cat. We're going to say goodbye now, so I hope you all have a great night. And don't forget to tune into The Boneyard on Facebook. It is at Chilling with Bones, Bones with a Z. And he does interviews with bands, musicians, and artists all the time. TJ is an amazing interviewer, and his co-host Ilsa from Stone Daisies, which is a podcast from South Africa, she also does a lot of the interviews with TJ, and she's amazing as well. They are very interesting people. They are so respectful to all artists everywhere, and they like to do established bands as well as bands that are just starting out, and they like to give exposure to everybody. So check them out at Chilling with Bones, Bones with a Z on Facebook. You'll be glad you did. This is Kyla from Paranormal at the Boneyard, signing off. And remember, just because you can't sense it with your 5 senses doesn't mean it's not really happening. Bye!